AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on what will air on a Friday morning. We're actually recording this on a Thursday afternoon. In our last segment, we chatted with the current mayor of Brockton, Linda Balzotti. And Mike, it's only fair that here in the following segment, we have a man that will be challenging her in the general election for the seat of mayor come early November. And we welcome into the studio Bill Carpenter. Bill, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, guys, and good morning, everyone that's listening. And PM in the AM, I still like that. It's almost as good as it takes a carpenter to build a city. It's my second favorite Brockton slogan right now.
Bill Carpenter is a man that knows some marketing, ladies and gentlemen. Bill, last time we had you on the program, it was the morning of the day where you were to announce that you were going to be running for mayor.
April 5th.
At Joe Angelo's Cafe. You remember the date precisely? And when you were in that morning, the first question I asked you was, why do you want to be mayor, and do you know what you're getting yourself into? I'll begin this interview by asking you, did you know what you were getting yourself into running for mayor?
Not completely, no. I have to agree. And this is someone who spent a lot of time here in the station through a number of city campaigns. I think I had a good idea of what to expect. I think the campaign from the outset has been a lot dirtier and a lot more personal than I anticipated it would be. And I was probably hopeful that we'd be talking a lot more about the future of the city and the issues that are really facing the city today. But you know what? That's the rough and tumble of Brockton politics, and, you know, I volunteered for it. So I'm not crying about it. I'm okay with it. It's part of the deal. But I think, to answer your question, that's probably the piece I really didn't fully anticipate. I knew it would be hard work, and it has been. But I got to tell you, it's also gratifying work. I didn't know what it would feel like to have over 200 people volunteering for you. You know, I mean, it's a humbling feeling when you see these people out there busting their hump, working at the end of their workday, before their workday, on their weekends, for no compensation other than the fact they believe in you. So, I mean, I didn't really expect that either. So it's been ups and downs. Campaigning is tough. It's hard work. But we're really excited about the close second finish in the preliminary. We're thrilled with where we are today in a one-on-one matchup with Mayor Balzotti in the final. We believe it's a toss-up race right now. The mayor did edge me out by 800 votes in the preliminary, but on the other hand, 56% of the people who voted said they wanted a new mayor in Brockton. So we think that this is a great race. I have all the respect in the world for Mayor Balzotti, and we are still cordial when we see each other almost every day. But I think I do have a different vision. I think I have different ideas. I think I possess a different set of leadership skills. And I'm ready to lead this city and work hard and get this city turned around, because I do honestly believe that the city of Brockton right now, guys, is at a crossroads. The violent crime, we've lost control of the streets of our city. When police officers on duty are being shot at, we've lost control of the streets of our city. When there are shootings and stabbings constantly, we've lost control of the streets of our city. And I'm worried about the financial future of this city, too. The mayor just agreed to a contract with the firefighters that her own chief financial officer says that we do not have the money to pay for the next 2 years without raising taxes. So I think that we're at a financial crossroads. I think we're at a crime crossroads, the safety of our people and our neighborhoods. And I think that either we're going to fight and take our city back, or Brockton's going to be the next Detroit, one or the other. And I plan to fight. I love this city. I plan to stay here. I'm raising my children and my grandchildren here. And I believe in the people of this city, and I want to lead the fight to take back control of this city and get Brockton back on track.
Now, I don't want to stick with this issue too much, but I do think that people would be interested. When you first announced that you were running for mayor, shortly thereafter came a lot of vehement and very vocal opposition to you, and then came...
Mostly from this station.
Well, not from this station in particular, but from people that were buying ad times on the station. Mike and myself try to stay rather neutral in the morning. And there was a lot of stuff that... There was information that, while it necessarily wasn't private, it was public record. It wasn't exactly out there. That became out there. How did you deal with that on a personal level?
Well, I mean, obviously you're referring to the fact that, you know, I've had some financial difficulties in my background with my family. I ended up as a single father raising 5 children. That was tough enough, and then I had a dramatic loss of income over several years. And putting those two together... what people have tried to, in retrospect, make look like financial decisions really weren't. I had to make decisions between money and family, between money and my children. And so, during some tough years, I chose and I made the decision as a father to take care of my kids first. And I had two teenagers with some issues. I had three young children at the time, very young. And, I fought hard to keep a roof over their head, keep clothes on their back, keep them fed, keep them safe, and get them through school. And those three younger kids are all successful today, and I'm very proud of them. They're all young adults, and now we're raising grandchildren. So, I never shied away from it. I've never tried to conceal it. I think anyone who are my friends and supporters all know my past. I mean, I've led my life as a pretty open book. I don't think I've ever tried to hide anything. But certainly, it's been used as a weapon against me. And I can handle it, Peter, those attacks. I think the only part of it that's bothered me is it's hurt my loved ones. And I do think in a campaign, somewhere along the line, there's a difference between the candidate and the candidate's family. And there ought to be a line. And, I had opportunities in the preliminary to raise some issues that involve family members of other candidates. I chose not to do it. I know what it feels like to be on the other end of that. I've always been open to discuss it, and we talk. It's part of who I am. I mean, we're all shaped by our life's experiences. And I think that, on one hand, some people try to make a negative out of it. On the other hand, I've had many people drawn to my campaign who have said to me, Bill, maybe it's time we have someone sitting in that corner office that has experienced some of the same pain as a lot of other families in the city of Brockton, and someone that can understand what families are up against in the city of Brockton. Someone who knows what it's like to choose between paying a bill or putting food on the table. And there's lots of Brockton families that are faced with those types of decisions every day. And, I have felt some of that pain. I've emerged from it. I'm stronger. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so I'm stronger, and I'm ready to take on any challenge the city has to face.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues. What do you feel qualifies you to be mayor of Brockton, and what do you think separates you from incumbent Linda Balzotti at this point?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I think probably starting off would be my leadership style. I think that until this campaign really got going a few months ago, the mayor was basically invisible for the first 3.5 years of her term. I don't think she's had a lot of initiatives. I don't think she's really displayed leadership, and I think this city is in desperate need of leadership right now. I think that the mayor has worked with her office door closed. I think I would be a mayor who would work with my office door open. I don't think the current mayor truly represents all of the different communities within our city. I believe I'm a mayor that can bridge that gap, and that I've worked very hard, and I have long-term relationships with people from all different communities within the city of Brockton. And nowadays our diversity is our strength. We need a mayor that can pull everyone together to lead this city forward. I would point to some of my efforts in the past, whether it was leading the effort to get an alternative recovery school established for teenagers facing drug and alcohol addiction. For 4 or 5 years, people told me that would never happen until we opened the doors. And I put together a team that not only drew the blueprint for the school, but also secured a $2.5 million grant from the state to get that school started. I would look at civic and projects that I've been involved in across the city over the years, whether it's being involved in boxer sports, building Little League fields on the city's east side. I think I've been a person that's always been able to get things done. Most recently, I took a leadership position on the Rocky Marciano Statue Committee. And I think that people on that committee would tell you I was a key player in getting that statue here. And 4 years of experience doing budgets on the school committee. And what people need to realize is I probably would come into the mayor's job with far more budget experience than Linda Balzotti, because as a city councilor, they get a completed budget and they review it over the course of a couple weeks and then approve it. On the school committee, we work intimately with the superintendent and the department heads over about a 2.5-month period, actually building the budget. The school committee members are directly involved in building that school budget, which is just as large as the city budget, $165 million budget. And for my first 3 years in the school committee, we faced dramatic budget deficits, $16 million my first year. And in those 3 years, we managed to cover the budget deficits, balance the budget. without impacting the quality of the education that our kids were receiving here in the city. So I think I have a lot of things I can point to, both in terms of leadership and experience, that I believe prepare me to lead this city. And I think the fact of, raising 6 children in this city and now 6 grandchildren, I've got very deep roots in this community, and I think I relate to working families.
We're chatting with Bill Carpenter, candidate for mayor of the city of Brockton. Bill, you mentioned that Brockton has lost control of the violence and crime in the city. What can be done besides putting more police on the streets, which seems to be the go-to answer?
Well, it's the go-to answer by everyone who never offers a way how to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Police officers are expensive. So I do agree. I came out with, and I'm going to give a brief answer to this and offer to people, if they're online, to please check out my website, billcarpenterformayor.com, and also my Facebook page, Bill Carpenter for Mayor, where you can find a complete copy of my 10-point plan called Brockton Fights Back. We've put together a 10-point plan to restore safe neighborhoods to the city of Brockton. I worked on this for months with key law enforcement people that I brought in to help me. I have a gentleman named Bob Hayden, who's now serving as my public safety advisor, my special advisor on public safety. Bob, as the deputy superintendent of the Boston Police Department, established the first gang unit in the city of Boston. He went up to Lawrence in the early 90s as the chief of police and cleaned up Lawrence, as that was in a situation very similar to where Brockton finds itself today. And then he went on to oversee the state police and other state law enforcement agencies under Governor Cellucci. So this is a guy with a tremendous law enforcement background. He's retired now. He's not looking for a job. He's advising me. And he was instrumental in putting together my 10-point program. But, it starts off with the enforcement piece. It's a neighborhood approach. We're going to take this city back street by street, block by block. We are going to relentlessly pursue every gang leader, drug dealer, criminal in this city. We're going to aggressively pursue them. We're going to arrest them. We're going to arrest them again. We're going to make life so miserable for them they'll either go to jail or go someplace else, but they won't stay here. We'll use saturated enforcement. We'll adopt some things that have worked in Springfield. Springfield was featured on 60 Minutes last year because 2 state troopers who came back from the Afghani province of Iraq came and worked with the Springfield gang unit on using some of the same counterinsurgency techniques that were used in Iraq and applying them to neighborhoods with high levels of gang activity in the city of Springfield. They started that 4 years ago. They've had dramatic success. It's worked in Springfield. I will adopt some of those same practices here. I will get the same kind of support from the state police in working with that. We need real community policing. Right now, we take some grant money, we paint it on the side of a couple of cars, we designate some officers to be community police officers. If I'm the mayor, every single Brockton police officer will be a community police officer. We will be integrally involved with the members of the community, many of whom with which we need to restore trust in the police. And we have to be willing to admit that, and we have to be willing to go into the neighborhoods and meet in the neighborhoods with the people there to work together to solve the problems. We do need more police officers. I'll enforce quality of life ordinances like public drinking and loud noise and other things that are blights on neighborhood, graffiti, junk cars. And then I've also offered some long-term solutions in my plan, too, to address the longer-term issues, such as bringing gang resistance education back into the schools, such as supporting a drug court for the Brockton District Court. The drug court started in the late 90s in South Boston. They work. This is where we can use the courts to offer people that are facing criminal charges an alternative to go into treatment instead of going into jail. Any police officer on the street will tell you that 90% of the property crime that's committed in the city, property crime, breaking into houses, breaking into cars, robberies, shoplifting, are committed by people who are stealing to support a drug addiction. Until we start addressing that drug addiction, that crime is not going to stop. I don't care how many times you lock them up. It's a better deal for the taxpayers. It costs us $50,000 a year to put someone in the county house of correction. We can put them in treatment for $15,000 a year, and if half of them are successful, we'll make a dramatic impact on property crime in this city. And I also want to see, to give you the school committee perspective, we need to get anti-drug and anti-gang curriculum into our middle schools and elementary schools because kids are making decisions at the age of 12, 13, 14 years old that can determine the outcome of the rest of their life. And we have to be talking to those kids before those ages to try to help them make good decisions and stay away from drugs and stay out of gangs.
I want to talk to you about a few issues. we've already talked about some issues where you and Linda Balzotti ultimately want the same results. You guys have different ways of getting there. Let's talk about some.
But on crime, Peter, I want to say this. Whatever Mayor Balzotti's plan was to reduce violent crime in this city, that plan has existed for 4 years, and it's failed. So I don't think it's the same approach. I think we're offering a completely different approach. I mean, if you're going to say, yeah, do we both want safety? Of course. But she's had 4 years. She's failed to provide it. There's more violence than ever on the streets of the city. Murders are up 50% this year. There was 3 shootings in the city just last weekend, 4 the weekend before that. So I think that from my perspective, whatever the Balzotti plan was to reduce violent crime in the city, it has failed. It's time for a change. We need a change in the city.
Let's move away from violence within the city. Let's talk about some issues that a lot of residents are speaking about. Let's talk about the Aquaria desalination plan. There is a differing of opinions on whether or not the contract that the city of Brockton currently has with that plant, where Brockton has to pay them $6 million per year without seeing any financial return or a drop of water for that matter. There is some disagreement between you and her as to whether or not Brockton can break that contract. She says she's had her legal teams look at it. It's, quote, ironclad. You say that's not exactly the case. Why do you feel that way? And you also have a plan where you would like Brockton to perhaps purchase the Aquaria desalination plant if you would become mayor.
Sure. And I love it when the mayor cites the legal advice that she's been given by the city solicitor. And in the case of the water plant, they did spend $3,000 to have someone take a look at it. But she's not forthcoming with all of the legal advice she gets from the city solicitor. So I challenge the mayor that if she's going to start citing the legal advice she's received from the city solicitor, let's be open and honest with the public and release all of the legal advice she's received from the city solicitor, including what legal advice she has received from her own attorneys regarding ongoing litigation with the developers of the electric plant in the city, where the city has spent over $1 million in outside legal fees. There have been 6 court decisions, 3 appeals, a total of 9 decisions, and the city is 0 for 9. I would love to hear the city solicitor freed up to tell us what advice has he given the mayor over the past 4 years as to what the prospects are for that line of litigation that she's continuing to pursue. But getting back to the Aquaria desal plant that you asked me about, Peter, I mean, that's not a bad deal. It's a scandal. Almost $12 million of the taxpayers' money in the last 2 years to not receive a drop of water. Naturally, the mayor is a little reluctant to criticize that contract because she approved that contract as a city councilor. She voted in favor of that contract as a Brockton city councilor. So naturally, it'd be a little difficult for her now to say, oh, it's a bad deal. It's a horrible deal. And you know what? The Brockton homeowners and business owners, they don't just need property tax relief. They need relief from their water bills also, particularly the owners of multifamily properties. And the reason the water rates are as high as they are is because we're flushing $6 million a year down the Coeasett Brook right now. So you're right. I disagree with the mayor. First of all, regardless of what I thought the ultimate chance of success was, losing $6 million a year, I'd have been fighting like hell against that contract and using any tactic we could possibly use. I've had 2 law professors review that contract. They've advised me that Aquaria has failed to perform in 2 key provisions of the contract. They did not spend $250,000 on marketing the first 3 years of operation as they were required to. More importantly, the exact language in that contract is that Aquaria promised to aggressively market the water to other users, both public and private. They have never sold a drop of water to anyone other than the city of Brockton, and we don't take most of the water we pay for. So I think that clearly they failed to perform in those 2 areas. Is that enough to completely void the contract? I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect not. Is it enough to seek relief under the contract? It absolutely is. And I do think that, number 1, we should be challenging the contract. Number 2, we should be challenging the ability of that desal water plant to do what they say it can do, because we've never really demanded it. Spend a little money, turn the Silver Lake way down for 60 days, and ask these guys to provide us with 5 million gallons of water a day for 60 consecutive days. Will that cause that $6 million to go up a little bit this year? Yeah, but let's find out if they can really do it, because if they can't, then we can void the contract. And thirdly, if they can do it and they demonstrate that that plant can do what they promise it can do, then we should be entering into negotiations to purchase it, because it makes a lot more sense to own an asset than to pay an expense. Any accountant or financial manager will tell you that. And my belief is that We could own that plant for a bond payment of between $3 and $3.5 million a year. If you bought it and turned around and shut it down the next day, you'd save $2.5 million a year by owning it. I don't believe that's the route to go. I think we have a unique opportunity. The city of Brockton is so much better positioned than other gateway cities like ours for the future in the 21st century if we'll just develop our water and sewer and electricity resources. We have the opportunities there, and we should be packaging our excess water capacity with our excess sewer capacity and marketing that to surrounding towns who are desperate for the sewer. The state DEP has recently raised our limit well above what we need for Brockton's daily needs at the sewer treatment plant. The sewer treatment plant that, by the way, we invested almost $100 million in upgrades over the last couple of years, and they've encouraged us to regionalize that sewer treatment. So we put water and sewer together, we sell it to surrounding communities, it brings in millions of dollars to the city of Brockton. We've got to start running the city more like a business and develop other streams of revenue coming into the city budget other than just property taxes, because we're driving good people and good businesses out of this city right now. So we bring the other sources of revenue in, then we can provide real property tax relief, bring businesses and jobs back into the city, stop breaking the backs of the homeowners. This year, the mayor raised the homeowners' property taxes the maximum 2.5% and gave that entire $3.5 million away in pay raises. It wasn't necessary. Her own CFO says the next 2 years, that firefighter's contract, we don't have the money to pay for it without a tax increase. She gave all her department heads and key employees $8,000 to $10,000 raises and used a tax increase to pay for it. I will not run the city that way. I'll freeze my own salary. I'll freeze the salaries of all the department heads, and I will not consider pay raises until we can balance a budget without raising taxes.
We've got 5 minutes left, Bill, and we want to get to a few more things.
I'm sorry.
I want to ask you about another disagreement. You have 3 talk show hosts in one studio. This is bound to happen. I want to ask you about another disagreement you have with Linda Balzotti. She is outright opposed to the proposed power plant coming to Brockton. You would welcome the power plant if the deal is right for the city. Why do you guys see this from different ways in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I think I would also like the mayor to be completely forthcoming with what advice she may have received from her chief financial officer regarding the possible purchase of the Aquaria desal plant over the last few years. Because my belief is the only reason the mayor hasn't pursued that path to benefit the Brockton taxpayers is because if we buy the desal plant, how are we going to say we don't have any water to supply the 2 million gallons a day that the electric plant would require if we own our own desal plant that can produce 17 million gallons a day, supposedly, and we're not using a drop of it. So I think she's let her position on one influence making a bad decision on the other. You're right, my position from the mayor does differ, but it's also often misrepresented, Peter. I haven't said I'm going to just carte blanche approve plans to build an electric plant, a gas-fired electric plant in this city upon coming into office. What I've said is my position has changed over the years. I was originally opposed to it. I've spent some time reviewing the litigation that's pending against the city, and it's clear to me that anyone with an open mind that looks at those recent decisions and appeals, every single one either resolved or settled in favor of the developers of the electric plant, to realize that after you lose 9 in a row, it's time to say, okay, what's plan B? Because plan A is not working, and it's not going to work. And I believe that if the mayor would release the information, I believe the mayor's own attorneys representing the city have told her that they cannot prevail in this line of litigation. So if that's the case, if you come to that conclusion, then you try to negotiate while you still have some leverage to negotiate with. And you're right, I would be looking for things like the developers dropping the $68 million civil rights lawsuit that's currently pending against the city of Brockton and could bankrupt the city of Brockton. I would insist on some form of profit sharing from the plant so that above certain thresholds, the more money they make, the more money that they would remit to the city of Brockton. And I would insist on negotiating up front both the water purchase and the taxes up front so that we're guaranteed and we know exactly what we would get from the plant with no chance of appeal later on. So, yeah, if we could get the right parameters, if it's done right, I believe there's a ton of regulation over these plants. I've been out to visit half a dozen other gas-fired electric plants. I think the opponents of the plant have done a great job misleading a lot of the public in terms of what this proposed plant is. There's no diesel fuel. There's no oil fuel. It's not nuclear. It runs strictly on natural gas. How many houses in this city are heated by natural gas? It's the cleanest burning fossil fuel we have, and I'm all in favor of developing alternative sources of energy. I'm working on a proposal on the facilities department of the school committee side, and perhaps considering turning the roofs of all the school buildings into solar fields and developing solar energy. I've talked about looking at that sewer treatment plant and pursuing to see if we can financially make it work to convert the sludge from the sewer treatment plant into energy. It's cutting-edge technology across the country now. The process is called anaerobic digestion. It's gaining legs across the country. So I want to develop alternative sources of energy, but I'm also looking at the financial future of this city. I don't want to lose that lawsuit. I don't want to continue to spend millions of dollars to out-of-town lawyers to lose every time they go to court. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I say it makes more sense to negotiate while we still have some leverage to negotiate with.
Bill, we are running out of time. We are up against a news break. One final question before I let you go. You've been in our seats before here on this very frequency, AM 1460, being the guy asking the questions. Do you like being the guy answering the questions? You getting comfortable in this role?
I think it's, I think I have a newfound appreciation to what I did to all those guests over the years, because it's, it is a little different perspective because you know what you're going to ask. I don't know what you're going to ask as the guest, so I have to be prepared to respond to it. So I think I always, when I had the Friday talk show, I think I tried to be a fair and balanced. I certainly had opinions, but I tried to always be fair with guests, regardless of whether they agree with me or disagree with me. But I think I do have a little newfound appreciation as to what it's like to be on the other side of the microphone and answer the questions instead of ask them. Sure, absolutely.
Well, Bill, we had Linda Balzotti on earlier. We have you on now. I think it'd be a good idea for us to do this at some point again before the general election, and we hope that we can have you on again.
Listen, I always love to come on with you guys. I appreciate what you do for the city of Brockton with the local news and information every morning. I don't think there's any replacement for community radio. I'd like to see us, if anything, be able to expand it in the future. It does provide an important role. Even if I get beat up on a daily basis on the mid-morning talk show, that's okay. It's America. It's freedom of speech. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on and present my point of view for a change.
That's Bill Carpenter joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Mike Paiva is going to bring us a local news update. We'll be back with more of the program after this.